Joining me right now is UFC featherweight standout Billy Quarantillo. Billy, man, you've had an incredible year so far. The last 12 months, you've racked up 3 straight wins. You're undefeated in the UFC. Even though there's been those moments with COVID, describe to me how you rate this whole year, this last 12 months.
Yeah, well, thanks again for having me, John. Always a great interview. Always a good time chatting with you. Yeah, I mean, like the professional side, it's kind of weird because COVID's just been such a mess to everyone, and I've had some other personal stuff that that weren't great, but as career-wise, this has been the best year of my life. I've been able to break out. I'm one of the breakout people in the UFC right now, 3-0, and if I'm able to go out there December 12th and beat Gavin Tucker, that would be 4 wins, basically in about 370 days, because my debut was December 7th. So 4-0 in my first year at the UFC, I couldn't have asked for a better start.
Yeah, and I see that you got your little studio set up and you're building it bit by bit, and you've been doing commentary. How has that benefited you as a fighter?
Yeah, absolutely. It's during COVID, there wasn't a whole lot to do, and I was able to buy this house in April, and so all the rooms were empty. So I basically transformed my office into like a little studio. I got like a brand new desktop, the headset, getting all like the pictures up and everything, and yeah, it's just another way to make money where I can actually do it from home, which it's been really exciting. And we were talking before. I've been working with a standout fighting tournament. It's an organization in Brazil, and I actually do like the English version with my friend Jay Adams. Shout out to Jay Adams for hooking me up with the job. And we've been killing it. We've done 3 shows so far, and we got about 3 more on the horizon. So that's with the United Fighting Alliance, where you could see those. And it's really cool, man. They've been great fights. They're all all Brazilian guys, all Brazilian athletes. And it's just another way I could branch out, and I love MMA so much. Like, even when I'm done fighting, I'm gonna be as involved with it as possible.
Yeah, you get to watch fights, you get to do commentary, you get to practice commentary, you get paid, and then on top of that, you get to peep out the prospects, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Like last card had the main event was 2 featherweights. There was like 10-1 versus 13-3, and man, I was really watching. I'm like, man, I'm watching this one tight because these Brazilians, they're I think like America, Brazil, and Russia have the most fighters in the UFC. So they're all good, man. They're all like black belts and really good Muay Thai. So yeah, not only do I get to study film, I basically get paid to do it and talk to my buddy and get that experience, knowing when to talk and when not to talk. So it's been a really good experience so far, and I'm going to take it as far as I can.
Also, when the UFC decides to select fighters to come in and do analysts at the desk, or anything, what I mean, to fill in late notice, they see your resume, man, and they could pick you up real quick.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely a build, like, it's definitely, that would definitely be a dream job eventually, to work with the UFC, in the commentary. But even more so, being able to do the commentary from my house, and to do other shows that might be in Russia, or again, Brazil or Europe or somewhere else like that. It's technology definitely changes a lot of that, and I definitely like to be in front of it.
All right. Any podcasts? You're going to start a podcast or anything like that?
I'm thinking about it. I'm thinking about doing stuff like that, maybe like a post-fight show, where because I love making my picks and interacting with fans. So I'm definitely planning on that, and I basically I'm giving myself this next 3.5 weeks to get ready for my fight, and then right after that, most likely I'm gonna do something where I'm either going live on Instagram or YouTube or something like that. Definitely in the future. I just don't want it to be, especially with the commentary right now, I don't want to get distracted from my fight, because I think the bigger legacy I could build for myself, becoming a world champion, becoming a household name in the UFC, that's all going to add on to what I could do at home, with the commentary and with the podcast and stuff like that.
So now let's get into the fights. Your last fight, you KO'd Kyle Nelson in the 3rd round. You face planted him. You know what I mean? I think that's the first time you've done that. Where do you rank that knockout against the others that you've had?
So they asked me it right after, and I think it's right up there. I have two, one punch knockouts like that, and they both hold a special place in my heart. My first one against Kama Worthy, who's in the UFC now, which is pretty. It's ironic that it was my biggest knockout going into the UFC. I knocked out Kama Worthy with a one punch knockout, and then with this Kyle Nelson fight. Kama Worthy got knocked out again, in the same exact card. So it's probably definitely the Kyle Nelson knockout's the number one because it's in the UFC. Someone sent me a video the other day. It was the 2020 best UFC knockouts, and it had like 1 million views, and I was one of them. So I thought that was pretty cool. I think that's one of those highlights that I'll get out there, probably more than like the Spike Carlisle punch that everyone has seen. So it's definitely probably my favorite knockout, but him and the Kama Worthy knockout got me into the Ultimate Fighter, and then this one got me on the Sports Center top 10 plays of the week. So the Kyle Nelson one and the Kyle Nelson one also got me a lot more money. I didn't get that 50 grand bonus, but the Kama Worthy knockout, I think I made like $1,000. So knocking out Kyle Nelson gave me a much bigger paycheck.
You know what's weird about that is the emotions that come with getting a victory like that, especially going through 2 tough rounds, and there's nobody there to like celebrate with you. Like that crowd. It sucks, right?
And what's crazy about that? So, like you were saying, it's it was a back and forth fight. It was 2 rounds, and right before the fight, the athletic commission, they kind of like joke around. They're like, hey, just so you know, like when you win, don't go and run up and jump on the cage. Like it's like the last thing they tell you. And I'm like, oh yeah, no, of course not. Of course not. I would never do that. I would never jump on the cage. And then, sure enough, we have the 2 rounds. I knock him out, and like it was kind of in my mind it was kind of blurry, and I jumped on the cage or whatever. And I remember leaving. I remember leaving the Apex, and my brother Jim is like, "Hey man," he's like, "Dude, they might fine you for jumping on the cage." And I looked at him, and I'm like, I didn't jump on the cage. I'm like, did I? And then next thing you know, I opened my phone, and it was like ESPN MMA, and it already had like 50,000 views, and it has me knocking him out and jumping right on the cage. I'm like, oh man, hopefully the athletic commission, doesn't go hard on me, which they didn't. I haven't heard from them yet, so I think we're cool.
Definitely. And man, if a heavyweight could jump on the cage and it doesn't collapse, I'm pretty sure you could jump on the cage.
I know. Yeah, that's one of those. It's one of those things that even as before the UFC, they always tell you like it's like a liability thing. Like if you jump on the cage and you fall, and I'm like, man, we're half naked beating the crap out of each other. I think jumping on the cage will be okay. So but it really was like I didn't even think about doing it. I landed that punch, and like next thing I know, like just all the emotions, and right after it, I didn't even remember doing it, and I had to watch it again. And I was like, oh yeah, I was really excited.
Health wise, how did you come out of that fight? I seen that your leg was wrapped up, iced up.
Yeah, that was it. It was my right lower. It was like my lower shin foot area. It was from throwing I threw a lot of calf kicks at him, and he was able to check a couple of them, and even the ones that he didn't check, I was hitting him so hard that it just bruised up my foot. But I took a month off, really didn't do much for a month, ate really good, really enjoyed myself. But I knew the Gavin Tucker fight was kind of brewing. He was chirping at me, I was chirping at him a little bit. So about a month after that, it kind of healed, and I still feel it a little bit where it's got like, a little minor, but every time I start sparring and I start getting excited again, it goes back to normal and it feels fine. So health wise, I was pretty much 100% right after, no breaks, no anything like that. And that's why I'm able to get another fight at the end of the year.
When did you start implementing the calf kicks? Because it seems like that is the new hot girl in the arsenal of tools that people like to use. Have you been using it for years, or is it something that's new?
Yeah, well, so it's funny because I have a very traditional Muay Thai coach. His name's Crew Dan Rawlings. Very, very good, smart coach. And we actually, during sparring, even before it became so popular, he would basically tell us, don't kick anyone below the knee in sparring because, it does so much damage. And I've watched a lot of people do it, obviously, and I would do it sometimes, like in other fights where I would just throw some low kicks. But then I noticed Kyle Nelson, who was it he fought? He fought someone. Man, I can't think of it now. Kyle Nelson fought someone. Oh, it was Matt Siles. Matt Siles, I think his name is. Kyle Nelson fought a game named Matt Siles, and Matt was able to and it was righty on righty, and he basically calf kicked him over and over and over again. And I was like, oh man, like I'm going to be able to do that unless he made those adjustments. And sure enough, I went out there and I started throwing them, and I noticed he wasn't checking them. So I was like, oh, they're there all day. So I was able to land at least 6 or 7 of those really hard calf kicks, and it worked out perfectly. So it was basically a case of me seeing a hole in his game and basically just exploiting it.
No doubt. Now, Gavin Tucker, you're scheduled to fight him again, and hopefully it's
Yes.
going to happen. But he actually fought between the last time you were scheduled to this fight coming up. He fought Justin James, who also had an incredible knockout in his debut, but was pretty much worked over by Tucker. What did you think about
Yep.
that performance?
Yeah, I thought he looked good, and when I watched that fight, I was thinking that we might fight eventually, and then after, once he mentioned my name, it was on. I was like, dude, I told my manager that was the fight to make right after, even though I was scheduled to fight Kyle Nelson. But yeah, he looked good. Gavin Tucker's a tough dude, and I'm not gonna unless he says anything about me, I'm not going to really, take too many shots at him because I think he's a very well-rounded athlete. The only thing that I will say is that, I think he had the opportunity to fight a lot of other unranked fighters, and basically he chose me again. You know what I mean? So he's basically like, I want that fight. And to me, it's kind of like, oh, he thinks he could beat me. But yeah, I think he looked really good. I saw he got dropped, and didn't almost get submitted. He got caught in a guillotine, and he had to basically shimmy his way out where he lost his pants, which was, it was just one of those weird things. But yeah, no, I'm going into this fight the same way I went into it when I was 1-0 and he was 2-1 with a lot of hype behind him. Now I'm 3-0 and he's 3-1, so it's a totally different fight. But I'm treating it the same. I think that I don't know what the odds are going to be. I might be a slight underdog or a slight favorite. I think it's going to be pretty close, but I'm going in there with the same mentality I always have, and that's my conditioning's I'm in great shape. My striking's on point, my wrestling's on point, and I'm ready to go as hard as I can for 15 minutes. And if he's not able to match that pace, he's going to be in a lot of trouble.
You mentioned earlier that when you were scheduled before, you were going in as a 1-0 fighter. Now you're 3-0 fighter in the UFC. It's totally different because that cage time that you spent, that 50 or not what is it, 20 something minutes in the cage that you spent in there, it's just invaluable, right?
Yeah, it's a totally different fight, and that's why I'll give credit to Kyle Nelson, because before I was 1-0, and not only that, I was 1-0 against a guy who took the fight on short notice, so they didn't really get a chance to really see a lot. But then coming back and beating the Alpha Ginger, who was 1-0 in the UFC, who's much bigger, much stronger than what Gavin probably is, and then having a full camp, and him having a full camp, and then doing the same thing against Kyle Nelson. I think I answered a lot of questions that people might have had about me, especially ones who didn't see me at my pro career, because if you beat someone on short notice, it doesn't really say a lot about you. But now being 3-0, I'm sure the odds are going to be way different. I'm sure I would have been a pretty big underdog before. I'm sure it's going to be a lot closer now, and it's a lot tougher of a fight for Gavin Tucker, because not only do I have 3 fights, 3-0 in the UFC, I've already fought at the Apex 3 times since last July. So I couldn't be more comfortable fighting there, especially in the smaller cage, especially having a good reach advantage. There's a lot of problems that I possess in this fight.
Is this fight against Tucker basically a fight to see who's ready for a top 15 opponent? Because I feel like you guys are both on that borderline, edge to get in there and face a guy that's in the top 15 or a fighter with a name.
I completely, that's exactly how I'm looking at it. I think a win here, they have to either give me a top 15 or a big name after that. And I think the same thing for Gavin. I thought the last fight, he was 2-1 going into that. He fought a guy who's coming off a big knockout, and he did what he had to do. And I like that, because if he would have lost, we wouldn't even have been fighting right now. Because the UFC usually matches up 2 guys coming off a win. So when we would have fought in April, it would have been on like a fight night in Nebraska. Wouldn't really been, we might have been able to steal the show, but it wasn't really on a big card. But now with both of us getting some big wins, and now it being on a pay-per-view, I think the stakes are much higher. And I think exactly what you just said. I think the winner of this fight, gets that top 15 fight next. They get a big name. We're going to get a lot more recognition. If I'm able to be 4-0 in the UFC, that's going to be a big deal for a lot of people.
And lately, the UFC have been pushing their veterans to fight the prospects. Guys like you coming up, and I like that. I like that they allow you to have a few fights, get a couple wins, and then now, okay, here's Clay Guida. Here's
Yeah.
like someone like that. That's exciting.
Dude, it's so exciting, man, and I'm just so happy that I've been able to get these wins without getting injured, because I think that's the easiest way to get these big names. Bang out a few wins. The UFC loves it because every time they call me, I'm ready to fight. I'm ready to, I've said yes to every fight they've offered me so far. The only thing we've really asked for, because we're not handpicking opponents. When Gavin called us out, we said, "Oh yeah, that's the one we want." And the only thing we said was we want it to be on one of these big pay-per-view cards, and they gave us this card. So I think the UFC is, they like what we're doing right now. My camp, and I just got to go out there and handle my business. And I know if I can finish this camp strong like I've been doing, it's going to be a dogfight, and I'm going to be able to get that win.
All right, 3-0 in the UFC. You have a submission. You have a unanimous decision. You have a knockout. What can we expect in this fight?
Yeah, yeah, and it's funny. People like literally fans will literally message me, and they're like, for like the Kyle Nelson fight, they would message me, and they're like, "Hey man, are you gonna try to knock him out or submit him?" And I'm like, man, I'm not. Who can really predict that? Especially because I like doing both. I'm a grappler at heart, but I love striking. I love putting that pain on people. But you look at the statistics. He's never been finished. I've only been finished once. We both have a ton of finishes. So I'm gonna do basically on the feet. I'm gonna try to knock him out, and I can definitely see him trying to wrestle with me. I can definitely see us both going for submissions, going for some grappling. He's got a pretty good gas tank too. He definitely has a better gas tank than Kyle Nelson, I think. So I'm expecting him to be full of energy. But so those are the type of guys I can't rely on my cardio. So I got to take him out. I got to try to finish him. I got to try to knock him out. I got to try to submit him early. So it's just expect it. You know how I fight. I'm going to be going hard as I can for 15 minutes. I'm not like one of these guys that has to reserve anything in the gas tank. So it's going to be a very high paced fight. I know he likes to move around a lot, and I'm looking for the finish because these decisions aren't getting the proper respect, and I haven't gotten one of those 50K bonuses yet. I know he got one his last fight. I think I deserved one last fight, but it just motivates me more to try and go and get it this fight. The number one goal is to get that win, but I'm doing everything I can to get that extra 50K.
Yeah, man. I hope you go in there, get that 50K. Christmas will be
Oh,
wonderful this year.
heck yeah, man! I can't wait, man. That's the goal, and I'm looking forward to it. And then, I'm getting married at the end of March,
Okay.
so I'm looking at it like I'm gonna fight Gavin Tucker, do everything I can to go out there and get the win. And then I'm looking at the next couple months is basically just gonna prepare myself to go on like in another sport, which would be like a playoff run.
Mm-hmm.
Enter the top 15 and see what kind of damage I could do in
Okay.
2021.
All right, man. Well, it all starts December 12th, UFC 256, Las Vegas. I'm happy that you got what you wanted to get on a big pay-per-view card.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for having me, John. I appreciate you, brother.
Pick a move in the ring. You can hit me with the words you fling.